Have you ever just looked at a calendar, stared at one single random square, and wondered about all the human triumphs, the tragedies, the massive turning points that have happened on that exact same day throughout history? Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to see how any given day actually holds centuries of profound world-altering history. And as we sit here in the year 2026, we are focusing our lens on just one specific date, August 4th.
Okay, let's kick things off with a bit of a brain teaser. What could possibly connect to the creation of champagne, the spark that essentially ignited global involvement in World War I, and a 60-year-old sea anemone? Sounds like a joke, right? But the answer is actually incredibly simple. They all share the exact same anniversary. When we aggregate the events of August 4th across the centuries, this fascinating, incredibly complex portrait of human history starts to emerge.
Part 1. The Winds of War.
So August 4th acts as this recurring flashpoint for conflict across the centuries. It's a date where tensions just seem to boil over into full-blown clashes. Let's go all the way back to 1265, during the Second Barons' War, when Prince Edward's army defeated rebellious barons at Evesham. Jump forward a bit to 1796, during the French Revolutionary Wars, and you've got Napoleon leading the French army of Italy to victory at the Battle of Lenato. But the truly monumental shift? That happens in 1914. In response to the German invasion of Belgium, the British Empire officially declared war on Germany on August 4th, which fundamentally escalated World War I. And then, half a century later, in 1964, we see the Second Gulf of Tonkin incident. That was when U.S. destroyers mistakenly reported coming under attack, an event that became a massive catalyst in the Vietnam War.
And this continuous thread of conflict, it stretches right into our modern times. In 1995, Operation Storm kicked off, marking the last major battle of the Croatian War of Independence. So if you think about it, from medieval swords all the way to 20th century geopolitical crises, August 4th has literally seen empires clash and borders violently redrawn.
Section 2. Innovation and Culture.
But history isn't just about destruction. There's this really powerful juxtaposition at play here. The exact same date that brings conflict also brings incredible sparks of human innovation. Take 1693, for example. August 4th is the date traditionally ascribed to Dom Perignon's invention of champagne. Now sure, historians love to debate if he actually invented it from scratch, but he absolutely developed the vital techniques we use today to perfect sparkling wine. Fast forward to 1821, and the Saturday Evening Post is published for the very first time as a weekly newspaper, which completely changed American reading culture. And then, jumping to 1977, U.S. President Jimmy Carter signs legislation creating the Department of Energy, permanently shifting how a global superpower powers its modern world. We drink, we read, we consume energy, and it's all shaped by this one specific day on the calendar.
This next one brilliantly illustrates how institutions we completely take for granted today trace their hidden roots back to this specific date. On August 4th, 1790, a newly passed Tariff Act created the Revenue Cutter Service. Now, if you haven't heard of it, don't worry, because today we know its direct descendant, the United States Coast Guard. That's right, a massive, absolutely crucial modern institution was born from a humble Tariff Act on an August Thursday over 2 centuries ago.
The really crucial point to take away here is that this date carries so much weight, it's actually been etched into the literal names of governments. In 1936, Greek Prime Minister Ioannis Metaxas suspended Parliament and the Constitution, and the resulting authoritarian government, it was simply and officially named the 4th of August regime. The date itself became the brand of an entire political era.
Part 3. Tragedy and Resilience. Of course, it is important to acknowledge that August 4th has also borne witness to profound moments of darkness and terrible natural disasters. Back in 1783, Mount Sama erupted in Japan. It tragically killed roughly 1,400 people right away, and the famine that followed caused an additional 20,000 deaths. Over a century later, in 1889, the Great Fire of Spokane, Washington destroyed 32 whole city blocks, just wiped them out. Both of these historical disasters permanently reshaped their physical landscapes and local communities. Actually, in Spokane's case, it prompted this massive rebuilding project that ultimately defined the city's future. Now, I want you to just take a look at this staggering number. 2,700. In 2020, 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate detonated in Beirut, Lebanon. The Beirut port explosion was a modern tragedy of just unimaginable magnitude. It took at least 220 lives and wounded over 5,000 people. It serves as a stark, heartbreaking reminder of the massive scale events that can suddenly anchor themselves to a date we thought was just going to be another typical Tuesday.
And amidst those giant macro tragedies, August 4th also holds deeply personal, heartbreaking micro moments. In 1944, a tip from a Dutch informer led the Gestapo to a sealed-off area in an Amsterdam warehouse. There, they found and arrested a young Jewish diarist named Anne Frank, her family, and 4 others. It is such an intimate tragedy hidden right within the unimaginable horror of the Holocaust, forever tying her capture to this day.
2 decades later, in 1964, the fight for human dignity marked another extremely dark day. Civil rights workers Michael Schroner, Andrew Goodman, and James Chaney were found dead in Mississippi after disappearing weeks earlier in June. Their tragic deaths became a major catalyst in the American civil rights movement, firmly connecting incredible historical resilience to the enduring fight for justice.
Section 4. Lives Begun and Ended.
You know, so much of history is really just the timeline of people, when they arrive and when they leave. And the incredible range of life attached to August 4th is just astounding. On the side of births, we have the iconic English poet Percy Bysshe Shelley in 1792 and the legendary French fashion designer Louis Vuitton in 1821. Under deaths, we have the beloved Danish author Hans Christian Andersen in 1875. Oh, and then there is Granny. Remember our brain teaser from the beginning? Granny was a sea anemone who died on August 4, 1887 in Edinburgh after living for nearly 60 years in captivity. Her death was such a marvel it was actually reported in the Scotsman and the New York Times. No way, right?
And grounding this timeline firmly in our modern era, August 4th is also a day of monumental contemporary births. In 1961, Barack Obama, the future 44th President of the United States, was born. It just goes to show how the events of a single date continuously echo right into the present leadership of our world.
Section 5. A Day of Remembrance.
Ultimately, history isn't just what happened, it's what we actually choose to remember. And this perfectly illustrates how society actively institutionalizes memory. Because of the Revenue Cutter Service of 1790, the United States officially celebrates Coast Guard Day today. Because of his birth in 1961, the state of Illinois observes Barack Obama Day. And because of the heartbreaking events of 2020, Lebanon observes a solemn Beirut explosion commemoration day. Triumphs and tragedies equally cemented into our modern calendar.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most compelling question. As we sit here in 2026, reading through the archives of human existence, what history is happening on this date today? From medieval battles to tragic losses and the births of future leaders, August 4th is literally never an ordinary day. The continuous march of human history is happening right now, right outside your window. So the real question is, as the year 2026 is fully etched into the timeline, what will future generations read about the August 4th that you are living today?